Bene, wow, questo è molto forte. Buongiorno a tutti, partirei innanzitutto con un ringraziamento a tutti coloro che hanno lavorato intensamente in un periodo particolare di vita di tutti noi per presentarvi l'iniziativa che rappresenta l'impegno e passione imprenditoriale e professionale che dedichiamo a questo
greet you
nostro paese
all,
che amiamo.
and we will be devoting this initiative to the country we love. And this is the first of the events. Obviously, I'd like to thank you very much for your participation here. We will do our best, obviously, to keep the interest high, and obviously, even in this virtual modality. And we will have two short Q&A sessions. The first, when we will be talking about the details of the fund, and then we will have a more general one. And obviously, you can ask questions. On the basis of the recent experience, we really need a vision. We really need a vision, so we need to set up a very strategic initiative. I'd like to share some thoughts with you, and obviously, and also to talk to you about the project that we will be talking to you about. So I would like to obviously express a series of considerations that sort of summarize these very intense months and tell you about what are our ideas so as to open up even more. Now, in all of these months, we have seen the emergence of important issues, the climate one, the health one, and that of inequality as well. In June, with the Floyd episode that we are all very well familiar with, and then we also have the hope, we also have the program of a new start based on new paradigms, which is summarized in the word Green Deal.
No, abbiamo bisogno di ripensare i modelli di sviluppo. Il passato era un modello di sviluppo economico, eccetera, basato sulla concentrazione, massimizzazione nel breve termine del profitto individuale. È una sintesi, una semplificazione. Dove vediamo il futuro? Vediamo il futuro su una ridistribuzione generativa fondata sul nuovo paradigma culturale, che vorrei raccontarvi brevemente per capire anche questa iniziativa come si colloca dal nostro punto di vista. Partiamo dal passato.
Let me start from the past. The past, I was saying, has been characterized by intensive consumption, maximizing short-term profit concentration. The word concentration will then come back when we will be covering various contents. This has generated inequality and has really disturbed the environmental balances. More fragility, a more fragile system has been created. And we've seen this the minute that there is an extraordinary event, this generates even more social, economic, environmental instability. Where are we going? Well, for sure, irreversible effects have to be expected. Where are we? And this is personal. It's my personal reflection that we'd like to share as a work group. We're very close to the irreversible effects, and this is our own perception, obviously. What impact has COVID had in the most intimate level of each one of us? Now, let's drop and forget the major great trends. What happened was that millions of people had simultaneously been experiencing the same experience, which we know all too well, forced isolation. What has this experience caused to us? Fear, a lot of fear. We, individually, each of us, had fear and was afraid. And this kind of sentiment and feeling is not really frequent. We were afraid of becoming sick, that our beloved and loved ones could become sick. So fear is a very strong sentiment and feeling. We have all experienced scarcity, not just those who have less lost. We have all been experiencing scarcity of relationships, scarcity of so many things. But on the other hand, we have also experienced and been through unknown disruptive innovations, which we had never been known. Digital connection, this is what I'm thinking of. Otherwise, we would have been completely isolated. So what is the origin of all this? We need more nature. Of course, I repeat now, this is my personal subjective perception, my conviction. My conviction, this is a hope I have, that personal survival cannot rely on individual models. It has to be based on everybody's survival in a resilient global system, and human interactions and social connections cannot be replaced by the digital world. So even before talking about the fund, what is the paradigm which we have been thinking of and reflecting on, where this industrial strategy is based on? It is based on three pillars, to make it simple. The first one is the development economic model, the deepest one that has to generate and engender equal opportunities. I'm not saying equality, but equal opportunities, bringing out to many the same opportunities. Employment, which is so fundamental, and investments, environmental impact, which is based on ESG, environmental, social governance criteria and parameters, and technology as an enabler of a new lifestyle. The second pillar, although we discuss this a lot, but we cannot do this, the second pillar is uniting our forces, our strength. We cannot think of transforming a country, an economy, industrially, if the individuals and the subjects that can really unite do not unite. This is a key pillar, and it's extremely important for the initiative that we will be talking about today. The third one is Italy. Italy has its oil, but it has its strategic resource on the territory. So in Italy, we can build a new alternative development profile model with centralization and centrality at once. And this initiative is the one that has to be supported with a real professional support to make progress on this. So in a nutshell, what do we see? We do see a Green Deal, we too, but very much based on the Italian strategy to allow leadership in Europe, for Italy, and in the Mediterranean basin, becoming a benchmark globally. Maybe this one time we have to really raise our head and try to formulate models that really walk beyond our confines and our frontiers. Italy, of 1,000 bell towers, is very much topical over other alternatives and territorial models like mega cities. I'll go back to that. Very quickly, let me cover the first pillar, development model, which is very much different from the past model, which I was describing to you, put into interpretation. The economic model is a cultural model, and I want to stress cultural because everything starts from the values you believe in. It's based on a new way to make sure that there is more for all, for everybody. Everybody generating new processes and diffused opportunities with a distributed network on a network of excellence. We'll go back to this again because the initiative that we are presented to you is very concrete, very tangible. It's not just about emotions and culture. With that, we will have a progressive environmental and social new balance, generating new growth, socio-economic, cultural, environmental growth, and this will be very much a virtuous circle. Where are we? We are just at the start, at the beginning, so we strongly believe in this because we must change our paradigm. The second pillar, very quickly again, is the union of forces, bringing our forces together. Let me start from money because at the end of the day, to get things done, it takes capital. We have a public Italian European resource plan, which is extraordinary, 750 billion, never happened before. We'll know this with an estimate which is perhaps a smaller one. We have 70 billion between the institutional capital of Italy together with the banking system that can generate every year. Public resources, 175 billion I'm talking about, deriving from all recovery funds, the instruments, and 480 billion, which will come from the country, Italy. Private resources may derive from pension funds, insurance, bank endowments, and the Italian capital system, which in our new paradigm, is just key, essential. You cannot recover in a country with the international money. It is possible to do that because Italians want to do this. Otherwise, we will have to sell off pieces of our country. Private impact and outcome investment funds, and I will not say too much on this, well, these are the instruments to provide investments that we have to go to our country, our territory in a selective way. The economic estimates, we all know this. These are two things. The International Monetary Fund 2020 minus 9%, and the estimates are really bad. Unemployment 12.7%. COVID data, again, the participants in pension funds between 2008 and 2014 really plummeted by 12%, and they only have 3.2 million subscribers. This is the difference between Italian and foreign investors, just to give you a clue. We have unemployment and less subscribers. If that is true, we have a structural problem. So the theme is, the topic is, let's bring together our forces, and this will cross-section all the major protagonists, the private companies, corporate, public, cultural, and private sectors and industries. I will stop now. This is just to give you a framework, of the major debate, and I'll turn it over to Beppe Sala. I'm very pleased to turn it over to him to share with us his personal vision. It's extremely important, considering the importance of Milan. Thank you.
Good morning. Okay, good morning, and this is the end of the greetings, obviously, because obviously I'm not much of a greetings type. But I'd like to seize the opportunity to tell you how I see things and what I think, and try to talk to you about things I know. In other moments, I have tried to explain to citizens what the health situation is like, and today I would leave maybe experts talk about this, and we do have a lot of experts in the scientific and medical world, even though there are different opinions and views. Certainly that this pandemic, put this pandemic under control is crucial for anything we'll be saying. But what are the matters, what are the issues that I would like to talk about? And also, what are my ideas about what we should be doing? Well, I'd like to mention a few. The first one is, in general terms, as far as Milan is concerned, I'm very, very concerned for the short and medium term. I think the next year or for the next 2 years it will be very, very difficult, because we were structured as a city for a certain size of work, and not only work, but social life, people coming, and obviously it's a very densely organized city, and because this is no longer there, it's not that the one who was a taxi driver, had a restaurant or had a cafe, can reconvert him or herself in a moment. He or she will need time, so we will have difficult times ahead. But I'm very positive in saying, as far as the long term is concerned. Why? Well, because we can put things differently, but even on the basis of what Freddy Catella said before, it's obvious that here we need to rethink ourselves, we need to reformulate our vision. You were talking about the cultural vision of the future. And if there is one reality in Italy and in Europe that can really interpret this role, is Milan, because it has universities, it has enterprises, it has creativity, it has a very active citizenship as well. So it has a series of features that make it very suitable to interpret change. I'm very, very worried, as I said. I'm very, very worried as far as the, let's say, short-term period is concerned, but very positive for the future. I'm not saying this, as a principle. I'm saying this because I truly believe this. Second point, once again, somehow, or rather, we all talk about discontinuity. We also talk about sustainability, and the two things often go hand in hand. For me, sustainability is a bit of a difficult definition sometimes, to handle. Obviously, sustainability is not merely the environment, it's much more than that, and it's very different. So we shouldn't be making this mistake. I think that the environmental issue is at the very heart, but the environmental issue should not be managed, according to me, without bearing in mind what the social issues are, for instance, solidarity, development. And so I think that in Italy, all in all, if we, there has never been a very strong awareness from an environmental standpoint. And if this has not happened, it's because we've only considered environmental issue per se. Just look at Germany, other success cases. You see that the vision is much broader. It encompasses a series of, they have a different idea of the society, and this is very, very important. But it is still crucial. We should not risk throwing all that we've done away. We need to understand that needs have changed. So the true question at this point is, all that which you have said, is it just a declaration of principles, or do we really believe it? And we are really all willing to change. We're all willing to, let's say, to change things, because if we're only telling the story, then the situation is dramatic. Terrible. If instead we're really open, if we want to remodulate our expectations for a longer time horizon, because this is the reality of enterprises, decision making. If you need, want to, reach for what you have achieved today, or if you want to look further ahead down the line. So if we can look ahead, I think down the line, I think that this would be right recipe. And then there's a third that I'd like to add. I'm here today, not so much, or let's say, not only to talk with men and women who think about building, about town planning, but I'm here to talk to women and men who have a certain vision of society. And I think this is what politics should be doing. We should never risk thinking that we know everything. We need to talk to others. We need to talk with the experts of a part of. And so my appeal to you is, please express yourselves about your vision of the city is. And my promise is, we shall be listening actively. Now, I'd like to be concise here. We will need to find the way to run parallel, let's say, to this, because in the world of finance, somebody is beginning to coin the idea of the big state, for instance. Why? Because when you have 175 billion to invest, you become a fundamental player at that point. So, even if it may seem paradoxical, in this historic moment, the governments, states, politics, they really become even more essential because they are crucial players, whereas before they were fundamental players. But they need to do it thinking that they're not doing their own game, but it's the game of the generation of change for society. Something will change for the better in our society. It will start off big cities. Very well have the 1,000 power bells, but either the big cities, and in particular Milan, show the way, or I see it as a very difficult situation to be solved. Thanks.
Grazie Beppe. Condividiamo tutto quello che hai detto, nel senso che questa è un'iniziativa concreta.
Thank you very much, Beppe. We share what you say. This is a very concrete initiative, and I hope that this is very. So now I have Alberto Olivetti, who is connected, who will take Alberto Olivetti is chairman of ADEP, and one of the most important associations in the country, because they put together some of the most important investors in the country, the capital
dell'EMPAM, ossia il Fondo Pensione dei
chairman of EMPAM, so it's the association of responsabilità importanti, bringing two important experiences, very important, and obviously so represents a very important sector, in particular in this moment.
Thank you. Thank you, Manfredi. Good morning to all of you. Thank you very much, Manfredi, for this presentation, for this introduction.
Non sentiamo l'audio.
To cover this project,
Scusaci Alberto, la parte digitale
sorry,
si sta
we cannot hear.
avviando.
Somebody is saying the digital people are stepping in. Can you hear me? Can you hear me well? Yes, somebody's saying. So again, good morning to all of you. Can you listen to me? Can you hear me? Can I speak?
Aspetta, che
yes.
Mi faccio dare istruzioni, poi ti dico.
One
Alberto.
second. I'll get some instructions and then I'll get back to you, Alberto. Good.
Allora, mi dicono di
I'm being told
il resto della presentazione,
to move on with the rest of the presentation. They will fix the audio remotely and then they will connect you back to the presentation later.
Evviva.
No, we can hear you now.
Evviva.
Great, great. Good, good, good.
Buongiorno a tutti. Allora,
good morning again. So, to describe this important project, I'd like to relate back to the Italy of 1,000 bell towers. As you said, Manfredi, our country is a country of so many villages, and the bell tower doesn't simply have a spatial size, but also a time-wise kind of dimension. At the time, the bell tower was the only thing that would mark time, first with the bells and then with the clocks. So time needs to be measured, as Galileo, did, and the father of scientific method. I think that measuring is precisely one of the things I'd like to cover and share with you. I think that in this project, it is important to bring together and unite financial needs with the economic efficacy, environmental awareness, education, social governance. All these things should turn into and translate into effective performance measurement, because it's fact numbers that can, be responsible for the good output, the good result, and achieving the goals set. So if that is so, I suggest that we should try to substantiate various words, environment, social. These are important terms, words, but sometimes they run the risk of being too broad a definition to provide their measurement. As the president of a medical organization, I think that COVID has largely proved and demonstrated that, in fact, there is a deep elements of inadequacy, inappropriate in our country, be them infrastructural or in terms of digital divide or general vulnerability of the economy. Like any other evil, there is something good that you can take out of this, because COVID-19 might be an extraordinary opportunity to do some social and business acceleration, getting past and beyond administrative barriers and stumbling blocks blocking the country. So this is also a business accelerator. Investing in urban infrastructures is a very strong driver for sustainable development. The pension funds for medical doctors that I do represent have a goal, an institutional goal, that is to pay performances, the performance out to our people, subscribers, not necessarily when they retire, the pension problems. They should also very much focus on work, creating new jobs for the professionals that are represented by this fund. So, of course, we do focus our attention on the environment, the appropriate management, whatever is social and good government. But let's not forget how to make these investments effective, the financial and economic relevance of them, in other words. This cannot be neglected. We do have rules today, and these rules, to be sincere, they are very much outdated. We have sustainability limits. Talking about, sustainability at 50 years is really unreasonable. We have multiple taxations, awful. We've been taxed on solidarity, so they cannot be accepted. But also, this situation, which is very much disruptive, a disaster, we are being called to make investments in welfare, but very careful to support to credit and to the household of our country. So we are potential investors, but the minute we are investors, we have to be farsighted, not patient, but be timely when stepping in to try and fund the performance of services that to deliver, whether pre and post work. A union on forces is a wonderful, amazing idea, but think about the roles of the team at work. The risk of uniting, bringing together forces, maybe forgetting the chance that somebody may be called out of his and her responsibilities. Guess whom I'm talking about or thinking of? The government, the regulated system, unless fiscal incentives are put out there in place to spur work, business, employment, and guaranteed income levels. Obviously, no fund will be interested in making a risky investment. So we do welcome, any initiative on the urban network of our country. The urban size, the dimension involves and really regards so many activities, telecommunications, energy, healthcare, and in that respect, we do want to be active protagonists, but each one of us should play his, her part. The risk of being called out of this framework, pretending that somebody else replaced their interventions, is a real risk, and this is only limited to managing the debt so far. And the risk, again, we run is to dry up the finances, the money of our citizens. We cannot accept this, so we'll be extremely careful. Thank you again, and I wish you the best. Thank you, Alberto. Thank you. You've been raising two extremely important issues, measuring being one, and this was part of our project that we'll describe to you. And to be the most difficult part of this, financially, it is a lot easier to measure things, but measuring a return that has an environmental impact, you can get there. Social and governance impact to be measured is extremely difficult. So we came up with analytics instruments that are key for what Alberto mentioned. That is the problem of measuring, having to measure, being transparent, checking out what you have said and done. And when you did not respect this will be part of the evolution. But unless you can have, a sharing of views, you will not evolve on your project. The second point is uniting, bringing together our forces. As Alberto said, we are very aware that we do need to put together our forces. Italy is not doing this. This is my personal view. I don't feel like, interpreting everybody's view at all costs. But this is the right time to raise your head as an entrepreneur and unite. We have to be successful in this. And from business, the enterprise, a very strong stimulus should come from the government as well. At this point, we're now ready to get into the merits and the details of, to get down into our initiative. So we'll describe our fund in details. It'll be presented with two panels. One panel will represent us as COIMA, Gabriele, Kelly, and myself. And the second panel, which is extremely important and plays a major role, which is the participants, the members on the steering committee. The steering committee, we will tell you later what is their role, who are the members on this board, on this committee, and, the depth that they have as we see it. So, if you're ready, we can start. We can start with the slides. I mentioned two pillars. So let me complete this. One was the development model, union of forces, and the third pillar is the territory as a resource. So I mentioned a few steps that we are taking as a strategy. Italy of 1,000 bell towers is a suggestion. What it does is really calling our territorial makeup. So the key point is for over 20 years, the dogma of territorial development around the world was that the bigger a city, the better it is. We've never believed this was true because any organization, any system of whatever nature has not an unlimited growth. And beyond a certain limit, it is no longer evolution, but it's involution. Pollution, transportation, safety. I mean, we have someone here who knows this very well because he governs one of the most important cities in Italy. So we have been reflecting on this. There is one extreme, the Borgos, the small little villages, but also maybe we have important in-between solutions. What is the industrial plan? And this is where we are now getting on the least strategic but more concrete comments. Channeling strategic investments of real economy into two major things. One, poles of excellence. What are they? Cities, namely some cities, as Beppe Sala said, specialized districts also. This is already part of our territorial vocation, productive research skills. We have not believed in this too much. We have not invested sufficiently or strengthened this sufficiently, these skills of excellence, which we do possess in this country, and obviously hyper-connected physically, but also very much digitally. Let me go over it quite quickly through that. So, our country, we all know. Let's not be ashamed of simple things. This is a country that has its own territory with an untapped potential in its territory. I'm thinking of, culturally, economically, around the world, a historical time where everybody is aiming at quality of living. Well, our country has always been having this. Well, let's pick it up. Territorial development based on livable cities, and this has to be very much detailed, and districts of excellence, a synergic balancing between the localization and concentration. We cannot move and shift from mega cities to borgers, small villages. This is a utopia. But the two systems maybe can be complementary, and they will do and be this the minute you have a hyper-connected structure across everything from electric cars, high speed, digital. Unless we invest in these industries, we cannot think of having a diffused territory. But if we do that, at this point, we can activate and put in place diffused territories. But this will only be part of a territorial development. Let me now get into the details of this project. First of all, we have COIMA ESG Impact Fund. What is this standard for? Investments can be traditional, that is aiming at a financial return, or investments may be done for philanthropy or philanthropic initiatives, not financially. So this fund has one ambition, that is producing simultaneously a financial return. As Alberto Rivetti was saying, any investor can invest because there is an objective to pay for Social Security, for instance. So financial return cannot be avoided. As Beppe Sala mentioned before, you can do that, with far-sightedness, the longer term. The trading of short term is not necessarily needed, especially for industrial goals. Social and economic return is very complex. An environmental return is very difficult. We know that the first step will be done with great solidity. What is the strategy of this fund? Very simple strategy. The fund can do just everything. Every Italian cities, every asset class, every social layers from development turning into return. It has a longer term horizon. So let me be more specific. What are the priorities of the fund? The priority is regenerating the territory, reusing it. Why? Because against this background, the one that we know now, transforming, updating the physical structure is a top priority. We're not buying buildings to resell them. We are transforming an economic infrastructure. So the topic of transformation, for this reason, is unique, the only real and actual fundamental element of our territory. Qualifying, developing also district size, dimensions, This is the dimension allowing for maximum top experimentation. We did that in Porta Nuova, in other cases. That's where innovation can be applied across the board and cross-sectionally, across mobility, energy, not just building or construction. There are priority sectors which we have identified. We have identified the agenda of the country, residential, tourism, mixed projects of destination. There is a strong focus on product innovation, which we will talk about for well-known reasons. So if the fund can do everything, what it cannot do unless these two conditions are met? It cannot do what it is up to, financial return and ESG return, if these two conditions are not met. So let me get into what will be done by my wife, a beautiful lady. Thank you.
So, good morning. I'd like to talk about three aspects in particular, wanting to combine what Manfredi said before, talking about economic returns, but also returns from ESG. So I'd like to start off from our approach, what our basic experiences, and the knowledge that has led us to being here today. And I would like to talk about an aspect which is more connected to governance. It is how we are structured at the level of the committee, of the procedures, processes, and then finally our tool, the tool that we will be applying to talk to you directly and to measure ourselves in this fund. So let's talk about our vision. We have adopted the PRI principles, the principles of responsible investing that I'm sure you are all familiar with, and then we have selected some of the goals in particular. Our sector talks about these in particular because they are the ones that are directly, let's say, targetable from also real estate point of view. But we went beyond these in our vision, and we added another 5 because obviously we need to talk about life on land. We need also to talk about biodiversity, and I'm just using this as an example in our sector. And then we have developed our vision called COIMA ESG, which is based on 8 pillars, and that wants to combine 8 aspects that we will be developing. So nature. So we have nature, humans, services, and knowledge, because now we are in a technological world, and we have the ethical part, inclusion, happiness, and beauty. But let's start off from our knowledge, let's say, which is always an important starting point because you can't really tackle such a complex project without having this basic knowledge. So in 1974, it starts from an entrepreneurial impulse of Riccardo De Capella, who are here with us in the audience. In the 90s already, we carried out some experiences and partnerships with institutional investors that, along with us, wanted to carry out quality projects. And then we obviously had the operator of Porta Nuova that worked with us from 2005 onwards, and we started bringing about innovations, let's say, important innovations within the real estate sector, because we were the first to be certified. In the meantime, we also had our foundation, the Catella Foundation, that deals with social and cultural aspects. We started off with our first reporting. The Bosco Verticale won the award on a world level. We started talking about biodiversity, about sustainability in a way that nobody else had been able to do before that. So the best tall building in the world. And so we started being structured to tackle these issues seriously. We developed a committee. Stefano Corbella, who's with us today, joined us as sustainability officer, and in the meantime been invited to participate in a European think tank on innovation. So COIMA, on an Italian level, participates with other European players to tackle all of these various points and issues. On the public-private team, we've just started managing this partnership with the municipality of Milan for the Library of the Trees, the so-called. It's a big challenge. Professor Colonna is here with us, and he has been with us in this challenge. Then COIMA City Lab has been created, and lastly, we're very proud of the US Green Building House. So basically, which is very much well known on a European level to be outstanding on leadership and on the various themes of sustainability. So I said before that Porta Nuova is a lab for us, and these are just some numbers, but we really did a huge effort in the past 15 years, and we're still making an effort now. So we started off from the design, for instance, zero use of fossil fuels, then 100% of certifiable buildings. But then along the way, obviously, complexity in the management of a neighborhood increases. So you must start managing services, doing inclusive project responsibility. We got to the management also of the so-called library of the trees. Last but not least, and this is a further challenge that we are facing now, so we're candidates to be the first certified lead in welfare community on a world level. So here we are entering the governance aspect and how we are structured. You can see here at the center, the Sustainable Innovation Committee. For me, it's become like, the trunk of a tree. Chairman Stefano Corbella is the Sustainability Officer, and then we have other division directors participating. And this obviously allows us to be sustainable and obviously the whole value chain, and all the various divisions need to be integrated to achieve this, and this is very important, integration. And then our interface is the obviously the European Sustainability Team, and then we are part of also the Milan Smart City Alliance. For us, it's a huge opportunity because we, let's say, deal with other players in the system who also have to think about the territory. On the left, you see all the various committees, internal one from the digital one to the task force, let's say, for values, all these collaborate with these committees so as to develop the pilot project. So this is the COIMA City Lab I was mentioning before. It's made up, as you can see, by 7 architects who are very diversified in their knowledge and the way they work in the territory. And this really is a way to support us to think about the cities of the future. And this has allowed us in the last period to carry out activities, and we have invited more than 150 architects to participate in this. And obviously this is an enormous wave of innovation that's arrived on the Italian territory, because it's the sorts of architects from all over the world who are working on the Italian territory. But what are the ESG priorities for us after all of this analysis, after the experience that we have? On an environmental point, we have obviously decarbonization. I will be talking about this later. As far as the socio-economic aspect is, a fund like this must think about employment and must also think about equal opportunities. And this both from the aspect of integration design, and so basically need to be accessible places for everybody, and also from the point of social inclusion and diversified inclusion. So now the world we need to start working on these factors. And then governance. What we do must be measurable and must be transparent for stakeholders, be it the government, citizens. We want to be able to publish things and make our reporting system open to everybody. At the level of the environment, decarbonization, and then I shall be dwelling on the first point. Obviously, we want to reduce CO2 emissions, but obviously, I'm not going to now be talking about how much, but you know that the real estate sector accounts for 40% of emissions on the world level. We have to work on this number. We have to reduce it. It's mandatory. And then we want to have at least 80% of the certified. And the certification, especially on the environmental aspect, or the socio-economic aspect of it, 35,000 jobs. And we want to measure ourselves with the world of certification. The certification works on the environment, and then there are also obviously the social, and we have the leader, and then the whale on the social one. Then the government's the internal tools we have developed. It's called the COIMA City Lab Charter, and we will have a certain measurement for this, but not only because an internal measurement is not enough. We also want to be, let's say, GRESB certified, so we have a third party working with us to make sure that our measurability and transparency is absolutely correct. Not only this, but these objectives are dynamic because the world changes, evolves. So these are our priorities today. In 5 years' time, there may be another emergency. We need to be capable of tackling this. Thanks to the experience and to the work group that Manfredi will be talking about with the steering committee, we are ready to meet this challenge. Then we have decarbonization. I will try to be as simple. This is the curve that's been established on the basis of various initiatives. We need to be about 70% to get to 13. So with our certain aspects that some say, so obviously the will of the fund is to have risk assets. And initially we have a lot of risk assets. We have a wonderful country, but not from an energy, so it's not self-sufficient. So actually profiles need the ones regeneration, so that these assets will no longer be risk assets. Obviously, in some cases, we'll also be doing new changes. And for instance, the Scalo Romano is a perfect example because it's in the downtown. But our thought is to work on these types of assets, to clean them and so that they will no longer be at risk. So this is our City Lab charter. I will try to give you some indications to be as simple. We have ESG themes, sometimes a bit vague and not implementable once you start projects. With the lab, we work to provide more specific definitions. So these are protection and environmental resilience, inclusion, and social integration. And then we also have growth for economic generation. And so you will be seeing, let's say, the main objectives that I mentioned. So protection, obviously, we will have to clean, to reclaim. I always talk also about biodiversity, inclusion, and growth once again, as we mentioned before. How do we apply this? There is a specific scoring, and we have a rating, and we do this in the first part, the first phase, step of the acquisition. So with Gabriele, there's a diligence phase, where we give a number to the building. In this case, for instance, a 19. Then COIMA establishes something. What is our work of requalification? How can we improve this number? And what objectives do we have? So we work on environmental aspects, on the social part, on the economic growth part, to get to a number which is satisfactory for us. This is our way. Within development, we keep this figure monitored because the target is not always achievable. It needs to be monitored. And so this is very important. As you know, the part of the management of the offices, where let's say there actually is a point where we can also reduce CO2 emissions, and consequently the part of the managing the monitoring during the life of the building is crucial. And obviously we have next step in here, you need to have all of the data that needs to have been correctly collected, measured, so that we can exit the investment. And then we have an independent rating with GRESB to be certified by a third party. So these are just some of the certifications that we use. You need well, GRESB, for instance. These are some of the certifications. I would like to give you an example, and then I will leave the floor to Gabriele. This is a building that we have, for instance, acquired in 2015. It's about to be completed. When we bought this as is, this was our ratings. It was a building that had this type of consumption for 100 kilowatts per square meter a year, to more than 200 tons of asbestos inside. Where did we work? We took it back to these figures. And if you remember the number I mentioned before, which is our target to have an investment which is 15 years under the curve, the science-based target of the CO2 emissions, well, this building is 30 years under the curve. And then we have applied the various certifications at the level of inclusion. This building was re-censored. The citizens they couldn't pass as citizens. Instead, we made it open, so gave to citizens more public spaces, and on top of this, it will be certified well silver and well also to the community. At the level of the growth, this was an abandoned building, so with our work, we have brought 150 million additional value generated within the local economy. We keep on monitoring things. The building is not over. We're completing it now, and then our work will be continuing and will continue to be monitored. Gabriele, thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. I have to say that this project has really provided us a steering point in terms of investment. The fund, the goals. Well, the goal of the fund is putting in place and activating investments for over 4 billion worth of euros. Investments are having an ESG impact on the real economy, on the land, and to do that through an open architecture. Well, ESG return, okay, but also financial return is equally important. And this fund brings together the two. The return goal objective is IRR over 10%, so the development stage, and a stabilized dividend of in excess of 5%. So as I was saying, the goal is having an impact of over 4 billion because the capital of this fund, and the fund has a multiplier of 4. Well, of course, we have the fund to capital. The fund is already doing, and we will see that when I'll cover a pipeline. Partnership, co-investments, this is the exact architecture, open architecture I mentioned before. Bank loans, the role of banks, in other words, and also loans coming from sovereign entities or institutions, for instance, the European Bank, for instance, European Investment Bank. Well, today we're here to announce the first closing of the fund, which is taking place at 400 million euros with a funding goal of 1 billion. So formally, we are now, starting off with the official placement in addition to the initial sponsor who have allowed us to get to the closing today. When you apply the multiplier, as I said, what we see is that the impact of this fund with 400 million of funding can be 1.5 billion worth of investment. So today, the amount for the investment that having an impact on the land is extremely outstanding. And with the goal being 1 billion of the AUM, it could become very easily 4 billion. So equally important is to look at the product innovation theme within the strategy of this fund. Manfredi quickly mentioned that before. Here, we are trying to identify a possible agenda for Italy. So what we did was to identify and spot the possible territorial development opportunities for each demographic segment. Here you see a few priorities that are cross-sectional across all segments. Think of infrastructures or transportation. But Freddie mentioned that there is a connection in terms of digital speed, and also in terms of high-speed connection or logistics, which is even more strategic for Italy in the light of the exponential growth in e-commerce. And we also have other themes which can be developed in a different way, very much as a function of there is a demographic need. Think of residence, for instance, the residences for young people, to workers or families, households, so renting at sustainable rent, or student residencies growing increasingly, or pre-furnished apartments or flats for professionals. The theme of real estate product is today all the more important, especially in the light of the ongoing change and disruption of this is the socio-economic, demographic change, digitalization, technological change. All these changes are producing an impact in a number of industries, but most of all in the real estate. Never before, the real estate has been very much stalemate and didn't move in terms of innovation for many, many years now. It is now keeping up and it has obviously to put in place a Copernican kind of revolution to remain abreast. That are themes common to all asset classes, renting preferred to ownership, the central role of users' well-being or the surrounding community, which were not part of our agenda before.
E soprattutto l'immobiliare sta diventando sempre di più un business di servizi.
And increasingly,
Importantissima la gestione. Prima bastava essere
this is playing a major role.
Degli immobili. Oggi l'elemento di gestione è fondamentale perché bisogna offrire dei servizi. E dov'è l'Italia in questo
So where is Italy in all
Il
this?
patrimonio italiano è assolutamente obsoleto e questo vale per il pubblico e anche per il privato. Qui vedete degli esempi. Gli enti pubblici, il 60% degli edifici sono stati costruiti prima del 1976 per una modalità di organizzazione del lavoro completamente differente di quella di oggi. Gli ospedali, il 60% ha più di 40 anni e il 75% delle apparecchiature sono obsolete. O il tema delle scuole. Abbiamo un'età media degli edifici scolastici superiore ai 50 anni. Quindi basate quasi sul modello della scuola gentiliana, con 21% degli edifici che hanno temi ambientali. E questo vale però anche nel settore privato, negli uffici gli immobili di qualità sono assoluta minoranza, sono minoranza a Milano e Roma, figuratevi nel resto dell'Italia, o la residenza, la classe energetica, questo è un dato di Milano, al 93% in stock inferiore a D e pensate in altre parti d'Italia. Quindi siamo andati a declinare per i diversi settori.
Okay, so we have a very short audio cut. Anyway, the various themes of transformation for the various industries are here in the design of buildings, in our projects, in our projects in the pipeline. We are already thinking of the product for the next few years. For instance, this is the example of the residence digitalization. During the lockdown, we've all realized how important it is to have a good connection. Talking about sustainability in a world that is very much heading towards a carbon tax, having a Class A building may be a source of saving. You know, a smart work. How many of us would be very happy to have, specific stations, ad hoc stations in your building to be able to work smart and in silence, in peace. Well, these transformations, these changes are all being implemented in our projects. Another example is, the underground areas, for instance. Think about, we are now redesigning the basement, thinking of the e-commerce needs. I don't know whether it happened to you, but during the lockdown, there were like, armies of parcels and boxes coming into the building, and we didn't know where to put them. So this is a future problem. Think of bicycles, electric cars, and recharging stations. And the same is true for buildings and offices, as Kelly has indicated. New projects that are out in the pipeline. For offices, the topic was the COVID effect on the demand for offices. So we have looked at the possible future effects, and we see an extremely important growth fourfold of smart working or work from home. A 10% reduction of the simultaneous presence of the personnel and staff in offices. But this is compensated for by 25% growth rate of the stations. So we're now heading towards larger spaces, spaces for services, for meeting rooms that are going to be much bigger for the central role of users.
Un incremento della domanda per edifici netta di nuova generazione che possono rispondere.
We're not thinking of new generation functionalities which may provide more flexibility. On the other hand,
edifici tradizionali.
for new buildings. Talking about Italy and new real estate industry, of course we have to focus on logistics, which is strategic for the country. The country has an ideal position. We have a south to north corridor, east-west corridor that connects back to the Via della Seta, which is extremely important for e-commerce. It really has increased twice the e-commerce. Between end of February and beginning of March and mid-March, there has been a 62% growth rate, so exponentially. But the logistics success of Italy is limited by an outdated real estate stock. Look at the difference, the features of various distribution centers or hangars, where logistics has a role to play, which is increasingly driven by automation, robotics, digitalization. Urban logistics is becoming extremely important, just like rethinking new logistic places and areas for pickup and deliveries during the same day. There's another sector which is extremely important for our country, but has criticalities like challenges, is the hotel industry. See, we have so many rooms, but the number of hotels is very limited. The average being 33 rooms per facility per hotel. And there is a predominance of family management, family-owned hotels. The chains are 5% of the total number, which is quite low. Family management, family ownership, which obviously is strongly challenged post-lockdown. But this could also be an opportunity to rethink the tourism industry, which, again, can start off from the strategic role of land, of the territory. According to UNESCO, we have 110 strategic touristic districts. And Italy has the right characteristics to rank at the highest value-added resort class. Very much high end of the market because it can attract many tourism flows. Now, a few details on the fund's pipeline. We have identified over 1 billion investments where we are now acting and working actively on. The goal, again, the target, as Manfredi just said, is urban regeneration without obviously neglecting reuse, which is quite good when the building can be readapted, requalified. The focus is very much on mixed uses, tourism, and the rest, starting from Milan, Rome, and the primary paramount Italian city towns. This is one of the pipelines we are now working. This is the Porta Romana station, which has been divested. But here we have done a partnership with a primary company to have a fourfold impact, as I mentioned before. Manfredi, the floor to you. Thank you.
Concludiamo rapidamente introducendovi il comitato di indirizzo. Il comitato di indirizzo che ha un ruolo molto importante, ci abbiamo pensato tanto, un po' lo avete capito, l'approccio è quello che in questo momento pensiamo che da un punto di vista bisogna pensare e dall'altro fare, però non puoi prescindere da nessuno dei due, quindi in un momento di grande trasformazione come quello che stiamo
experiencing now, of great responsibilities, to think is crucial. To introduce in the fund's governance a steering committee. I'm not going to comment this, but obviously here you have all of the differences between a normal fund and this fund, which are basically three. The first is where you see the Sustainability Innovation Committee that Kelly mentioned, and then you have the second, which is the COIMA City Lab. We've already mentioned this too, and then you have the steering committee, which is the heart, let's say, of the strategic thought and address of the fund. The steering committee, I'd like to seize the opportunity of introducing participants who are all here with us today, and they will be obviously participating. We have the chairman, Luciano, who is obviously also chairman of the Casa Forense. Then we have Walter Anedda of the accounting, let's say, Casa. Then you have other members of sponsors who along the way will join us. And then we have three independent members who are people of extraordinary knowledge, experience, above all connected to what this fund wants to do. Ercilia Vaudo Scarpetta of the European Space Agency, Chief Diversity Officer. We have Giovanna Melandri, who had an extraordinary political career as Minister of Culture, but here she is chairman of Human. Not only Giovanna is also participates to the working table of the Impact Fund on the world level. And then we have Luca Valero Camerano, who has an enormous experience at the level instead of infrastructures. So what does this committee do? I'm going to just frame this, and then it will be up to Nunzio, obviously, and to his colleagues to talk about this. But the interface is with our management and with our governance committees. Also with COIMA City Lab, so that with that group of architects who work with us on a strategic level, and it deals with discussing global trends on the subject of the ESG and the priorities, and this is more of the thought part. And then periodic auditing of strategy and the methodology of projects. It contributes to making up the network. We spoke about open architecture, so the connection network between the scientific and economic, let's say, top experts, and also the rest of the world. And this can become a subject which will be very important vis-a-vis the subject, the public, let's say the part. So this is the more specific part of the fund. We had anticipated there will be a Q&A session to be very fast. I would keep it quite short. If you really have not more than 2 questions, to proceed quite quickly. If we can see these on the screen, we will be answering very quickly, just to leave instead time and room to the, let's say, to the steering committee. Yes, I have them here. So we spoke about open architecture. Who are the interlocutors, the counterparts? They are everybody. I mean, it's everybody. We have the capital side, then we have investors, in particular national investors or even international ones that we can do co-investments with, private sector, public sector, both. We have the Cassa Deposito e Prestiti. We have to be very clear. This is we address ourselves to these in a very open way. Then we have the central and city administration subject. So this is a strategic fund that can do a lot on the territory, but cannot do it on its own. You need, obviously, to have also to work with the public. And then the Italian banking sector, we have primary banks, Intesa Unicredito. I'm not going to mention them all, but obviously banks that have an excellent compass and know very well what the way is, even for ESG projects, all of the scientific and cultural part. So this is not a closed structure. We're not thinking that we have the answers by ourselves. We have a lot of questions. We have some people around us who will help us, providing answers. The more, the better. The more effective we will be. The more we can convey to others what our work is, the happier we will be. If there will be 10 ESG funds, or if all funds will be ESG in 5 years' time, we can only be happy about this, because probably we will have allowed for the opening of the market. Let's pass on to the second question now. Have you already established what the investment strategy for the fund will be? Will it be real estate requalification or development? I think that Gabriele has already provided an answer here. I'd just like to make a comment. It's certain, just as it has been shown by Gabriele, the huge emergency is the existing assets. So the challenge will be to upgrade this. Urban regeneration meant as the use of areas, even for the strategic or philosophical approach, is obviously to connect the growth of cities. So not only occupying new soil, but using what we already have in the best possible way. So this will be also our criterion to obviously move and to proceed. So I would conclude. I'd like to thank you very much for this very intense let's say, illustration of the fund. And now I would like to call Luciano to join us. Nunzio and Walter are here with us physically. Instead, we have Giuseppe Santoro, who is the chairman of Narcasta, who is connected, and also Silvia Baudo Scarpetta, Giovanna Melandri. They are remotely connected, and also Valerio Camerano. He is also remotely. It's fantastic. The digital part is working. For me, it's amazing. I'm not very good at this, so I'm very, very pleased to see this. So I leave the floor to you.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you all. Thank you for stepping in. It's a wonderful picture. I got ready to say a few things, but I will change my topics. I loved when Kelly started out talking about the story of the foundation. And then I looked at your eyes, and you sort of moved, you were feeling an emotional sentiment. And this image, to me, goes next to another one, which is the heart of the thinking and the thought of this initiative. It's a wonderful thing that I wanted to tell you. First of all, we have good news. Breaking news this morning. The work site will be unlocked. The government is trying, the construction site, will try to obviously promote this. We all need this. Is good news, and this signal goes very much in the direction of Mayor Sala, when he mentioned and went through the concept of having a vision. Cassa di Previdenza must have a long-term vision. We have to make long-term investments that can help this country to grow. The thing that really brought us together when we started out discussing this project with Walter, with Manfredi, for ADEP in the world of Cassa di Previdenza. But it's not only this. Together with this, there is a whole world of pension funds, the whole world of banks, which will have to move closer increasingly and give us a tangible help to work on these initiatives. There is a problem of how to relate with the state. The state is becoming more important. The state will have to, as Olivetti said, president of ADEP, to really address a number of needs. We are treated like normal speculative funds with a 26% tax rate. We invest to do some pension to our members, and we do more than this. We try to get our economy to restart again. Now, this initiative is very much following this direction. And again, as Amea was saying, we should take a pinch of optimism when doing this. We strongly, badly need this. This is one of the problems of our country, trying to, transmit, convey optimism. Otherwise, reopening, restarting will be even more difficult. So the Capta Pensione, the pension fund, is very much supporting this philosophy. And let's start from the big cities, as Sala was saying, which is not just Milan, which is an experimental lab, an experience which was already done by COIMA in the past. This is an experience which has undoubtedly brought to major results. Kelly was, running through the story, the history of certain investments. Nothing abstract, but very much tangible. She came up with the hard facts, data which hopefully will become the data, the facts for the Italian economy, hopefully. The funding, the first closing has taken place. The amount collected is extremely important, and we've seen what the prospects of investments could be with tangible examples. This seems to me a highly flexible fund. Kelly was only right when she told us that the fund strategy is going through consistent, regular evolution and will be revised. We need to change quite quickly. I have a friend, a journalist, and he always says it's not longer the biggest fish eating up the smallest one, but the fastest one. So likewise, we should be able to interpret changes, but very very rapidly and promptly. It is a very brave project of an extensive social impact, and it comes really at a very special time. We've seen the GDP numbers, data is going up. This is a fund that can relaunch also very much the level of employment in our country. We believe in this, but the fund has to be synergic. Why? Why synergic? Because next to the Cassa di Previdenza, obviously we need to have pension funds, the bank, but also another key actor has to be present, the state, a direct relationship between the savings and loans, bank, and other interlocutors will support this project. Also, our land, our soil has to be upgraded. This is our strength. Italy of soils and lands from north down to the south. Other cities have been involved in the project, starting from Milan to provide urban regeneration out to other cities. I've seen Naples, Bari, Palermo. I've seen also other cities in the south. It's a pilot project. And if we carry this project on with strength and determination and resolution, it'll be exported out to other realities. Where does it start from? I'm talking to Walter, the Vice President, right now. The Cassa dei Commercialisti, but also Santoro. It all starts from the Casse, from our funds and pension funds as the front runners to help this country. We are the invested ones, the strongest shareholders of the Bank of Italy with over 15% of holding. This is a universe, a world that, together with the pension fund world, is not truly considered by politics. Walter, this is going to be one more argument to get politics to understand how important it is for us to use these resources to get the country's GDP to grow. And with that, also the GDP of professionals can grow. So the idea is to upgrade our territory, our land. We mentioned digitization, the impact on real economy. The other issue is real economy. Again, we often hear this word, but then we don't understand what and where it is. The mayor also mentioned, a few words on the impact on real economy. Well, this is a way to assess, to measure, as Kelly was saying, what the impact can be in terms of a number of jobs created. It's an important impact, which has to be duly allowed for by the state. And it all starts again from Milan. Against this background, the investment committee has a work to get done. The committee has various professional skills and competencies. Yesterday, I had a chat with the representatives of the investment committees, and I picked up, various perceptions and various views here and there. So the committee is becoming richer, broader, and can provide a truly important contribution. Manfredi, I will not repeat what he said. Well, the committee has a specific task. Can we have, for 1 second, the slide before on, please? 4 major guidelines, as mentioned by Manfredi. Global tendencies, ESG, periodic revision of the strategy, of the methodology of the ongoing and potential projects, interconnection network between economic and scientific challenges in the productive pipeline, and favoring knowledge with other sectors. One more thing. The committee has to be quick, flexible, and has to be the heart of our thinking, carrying on new proposals to stimulate and boost not just the initiatives within the world of entrepreneurs, of businesses, the casse, banks, pension funds, and also with the state. Now, this is an important task which we believe that can be developed and fixed by providing a virtuous example to the country, showing that a project that starts with the collaboration of all these actors can be an example for our country. Thank you very much. I'll give the floor immediately to Walter, Vice President. Walter Nadella. He is the President of the Cassa dei Commercialisti. Please, Walter.
Ringrazio Nunzio, ringrazio chiaramente
So I'd like to thank Nuncia, I'd like to thank Manfredi for the opportunity. I have some notes because unfortunately I tend to digress. So having notes, I can stick to the line, especially to stick to the time allotted to us and so rightly allotted to us. So I'm going to start off from an essential point, I believe. Why is it that welfare bodies, institutions should go out of their comfort zone, the one that they normally act in, and embark themselves in a bit of an unusual venture? So what can be the so-called attractiveness elements for a project such as this one? Okay, we need to highlight obviously all of those elements that any institutional investor would consider. The company, obviously, the company that you start a partnership with. So the structure, the story, the track record, the level of profitability, obviously this is important. We are not anonymous, we're not a non-profit, we need to have returns. And so we try to move in this direction, and also the diversification of the investment. This too is a very important element. Unfortunately, these three elements can be maybe found or probably found also in other, let's say, subjects, existing subjects. So what is the element that in our context, in our situation, made us want to be part of this project? Well, I think sharing a certain strategic direction, so to be part of a project that we believe in. So a strategic project that I'd like to summarize in just one word, it is vision. So what we have analyzed, what we have understood is that the project is characterized by a vision. And a vision is never a short-term one, and social security institutions are never short-term institutions or agencies. They always have long-term horizons. And this is a vision that's also characterized by a very holistic vision of the theme, let's say. Instead of analyzing the individual aspects of the project, you look at the project as a whole, knowing very well that it is the whole set of these interventions that compose and that exceed the sum of the individual ones. I mean, the total exceeds the sum of the individual projects. And this characterizes those social security institutions that believe that they have a vision. This is a typical feature. These institutions pursue long-term objectives, and something that may escape is that they always favor collective interest, and this is not always understood. I often use this sentence. They know that this collective interest is not provided by the sum of the individual elements. So, holistic vision for the project, and we see it reflected, mirrored, let's say, also in the social security institutions. What does this mean? Well, we spoke about measurability before. We spoke about the difficulty that we often have, for instance, measuring. When we spoke about this, I jotted this down during the presentation. When I heard this, I remembered that the objectives that are being pursued tend to refute the theory of a gentleman called Albert Einstein. I think that many of you know the famous sentence by Einstein saying that not all that counts can be counted, and vice versa. So what he's trying to do in reality is to refute this element. So somehow or other, you have to try counting even what naturally would be difficult to count. It's important to give it a value, to measure it. And this is the added value, which is very important in decision making. Social security institutions invest on the future for a very simple fact, because they're based on the future. A social security institution that's based on the past makes a huge mistake. The previous speaker reminded us that we're very anchored at sustainability, things that are quite old. They're based on historical analysis or historical trends. And obviously these are not enough. Instead, we should think about the future. This is crucial. This is of paramount importance. Some months ago, my CASA, my institution, they organize an event every year. Obviously, the event was not organized this year because it should have been in April and couldn't be for COVID. And the title of this event, I really liked it. It says, "Nothing unpredictable apart from the future." Nothing is unpredictable apart from the future. And this is the greatest challenge that social security institutions today have to face, which is the greatest challenge that a project like this also has to face. Recently, I wrote a very short editorial starting off from this title, and I was explaining what the difficulty is to foresee the future, how an emergency such as the COVID really proved the difficulty of predicting the future. Here too, I closed the editorial by quoting an Austrian economist who said that the best way to foresee the future is that of building it. And this idea is also very specifically supported by one of the components of the City Lab. I'm referring to Caprati, who in the book, The City of the Future, really mentions the future craft. This is the need of being players, of being active in the construction of the future. I think that all these are very important, and they've led my institution and also other social security institutions that have decided to participate in this project to invest not only financially, but also to invest as a strategic choice. Participation in the construction of the future is investing in real economy in a way, but not only in terms of achievement of financial objective, as I was saying before, but it also means investing in a social, something which is social, or in the environment. And it means investing in synergies too. It has been, the role of the steering committee has been remembered, has been underlined, and one of the essential points, as Nunzio said before, is that of being a driver to create synergies and to make, obviously, the project as open as possible. So I am closing because I'd like to respect the times that have been given to me very rightly. I try to pay a lot of attention to time. And the social security institutions believe, and I think that many others will follow suit, to those who have, let's say, decided to commit themselves in this project, they will follow suit to, let's say, take the distance from a public type of social security approach. So to think about the interest of the people who are members, to be an active part and to play an active role, having the full awareness, as I say, that the future is not the transposition of the present. You can't project the future, but rather what is it has to be completely different in the future. What I have in the present has to be different in the future. The commitment of institutions is there, and I am absolutely convinced, also knowing the other chair people who are part of our associations, that we will not be the only ones in this initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Walter. Giuseppe Santoro, the president of IDAR CASA, the position of engineers, architects on the farm. Please, Giuseppe, and thank you so much. Thank you, Nunzia. Thank you all. Thank you for having me. Thank you, COIMA, for having me, and also for wanting IDAR CASA here with you. What will the future cities look like? This is the first idea that 4 or 5 years ago in Arcasa raised as a question. We were looking at the heritage, the national heritage, the awareness of the national heritage. When I say national heritage, I'm not thinking just of landscaping, landscapes, cultural, real estate heritage. I'm thinking of our children, the offspring, the greatest of all heritage elements. So, what will be future cities be looking like? We wanted to go back to the OECD principles to be inspired, the general theme of accountability, communication, transparency. So we went to ESG themes. We started from the tail of ESG factors. For us, ESG process must start from its governance. It's a must. There is no possible sustainability, no resilience, any other type of activity unless there is a aware governance that participates actively. Carlo Ratti, in his Sensible City Lab of Boston, has looked at a changing city of the future. Richard Susskind, a futurologist, believes that the next jobs of the future, alas, he neglects a little bit architects, but the next professions will be a management engineer, a bit partly lawyer, partly engineer, a bit of everything. This is a changing city that is being transformed. And engineers, Italian architects, of course, they have to be at the core of this process. And for these specific reasons, going back and unwinding, CASA has started to focus on the principles of international responsibilities, like the UN principles, the Forum of Sustainable Finance, together with Casa Forense, that was one of the signatory of the European Parliament document supported by Ursula von der Leyen and with the European Recovery Group. I mean, this is a green alliance, I repeat. Well, great. All these elements for us are key milestones for Ina Casa looking out at the cities of the future, sustainable development in other words, but starting off from a governance which is formed and informed, makes it that project investments like the ones we are now sharing with you are increasingly being the focus of our people. Our real estate asset managers are always being asked the GRESB rating by default for the general process. So cities of the future, I think that from these cities of the future, we should make a call to all social security institutions and urge the future we have to make sure that the future will be just like the way we want it to be, and we will participate actively in this. These investments are a good hope for us. It's an important path that is running across all the cities of Italy, not just the two biggest ones, Rome and Milan, but it's a maze of wonderful paths and lanes which are hidden and that can be looked upon not just by Italian architects and engineers. The topic of autonomous driving is a topic which will disrupt the human and extra urban life experience, calling up many professional skills and categories to be involved. Autonomous driving, whenever there is a car in a project, obviously, there's so many projects that are interrelated to this. If a tree falls down, many entities are going to be called in to help an engineer and ensure. So eventually, the city will have to be human-based. One thing is sure, the future will be like the way we want it to be built, and will be all on our shoulders. Thank you. Thank you, Giuseppe. We want to build the future, and Giovanna Melandri has been mentioned by Manfredi. So Giovanna is the president of the Human Foundation, and she has major global responsibilities. One of the top experts in this. Please, Giovanna.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I'd like to apologize with you. Obviously, I have this big opportunity of this remote connection that makes this connection possible, even if I'm on the car. I'm moving at the moment. But I listened to the presentations this morning. And first of all, I'd like to thank very much Manfredi, Capella. I'd like to thank him very much. I'd like to thank Kelly very much as well for her very timely description of the various internal procedures to achieve the different objectives concerning sustainability. So I'm extremely happy to be part of this steering committee. It's a great pleasure for me because I really do hope that I will be able to contribute to the growth of the ecosystem that in Italy must necessarily take off, of finance that generates, that nurtures, not an extractive but generative finance, a finance that purposefully, apart from the risk dimension and the return dimension that obviously have to be included in the choices, in the investment choices, but should also intentionally involve the, let's say, the generated impact, an impact that has to be positive, measurable. And I go back here to the words that have been said by the chairman of EMPAM, because I think that the intangible infrastructure of this new generation of investments truly is measurability and also additionality, as I would like to call it. These are the important features. So I know that this is a matter of words used. I already told Kelly this privately, but I'd like to repeat this. So I'd like to, I'd like to thank you for having reminded me to have the honor of participating to the GSG International Board, which is the global steering group for impact investment that groups all of the big players of impact investment worldwide. So we can say that from the point of view of the actual definition of impact investment, this investment asset class is conceived, is thought of, is presented as the evolution, the next step of ESG compliance. But I have to say that listening to the various ways in which COIMA has interpreted, because not everybody does this, not every institution does this, not every organization does it, has interpreted ESG indicators. Having listened to how they have been interpreted, and I'm sure we will be working more on this together, and it will be very interesting to talk about this and to talk about the measurement of the generated impact on various metrics for measurement, because, as Leda was saying before, quoting Einstein, not all that counts can be counted, but all that counts can be assessed, can be evaluated, and can be translated, let's say, in, a representation of a certain value chain. And this is what Human Foundation has been doing for some years in Italy. Our objective basically is that of promoting and generating this ecosystem as much as possible. And then I would like to add another thing, because Manfredi has very much underlined and emphasized the idea of joining forces. And to some extent, forces are joined also through the different legal, contractual forms which exist. And here I would like to add some other food for thought. One of the main tools in impact financing that we have in the impact, let's say, economy are the tools of social impact bonds, or even on a national scale, we have the outcome funds. So these basically are funds that activate public-private partnerships in which the contract has as an objective the solution of social complex issues, and has as an objective also the channeling of private capital to be used to promote objectives or innovative public policies. So when you talk about joining forces, there are many words that can be then, let's say, translated or that can be implemented through innovative legal means and tools. And I think that the outcome funds that remunerate on the basis of the social, environmental impact that's been generated by an investment on the basis of the outcome of the result. In other countries, they're called, aim by results, because they remunerate investments, they give back capital, they remunerate the investment on the basis of of whether the social development identified objective has been reached or not. So, urban regeneration and transformation in our country, I'm not going to dwell too long on this, I don't want to take away time from you, but this regeneration is necessarily at the very heart of, let's say, an engineering of public policy, if we can call them like this. And what I would like to explicitly add is this, that when social impact agenda for Italy, which is the Italian network that belongs to this world network of impact investment, when it's been called upon to listen, the Prime Minister recently in the general address, we have identified in the outcome funds or in those funds which are connected to social objectives, one of the tools that could be used, let's say, not only for urban regeneration, but also this theme that's been, let's say, evoked and mentioned a number of times this morning already, of the development of the internal areas of the small towns, for instance, and the relationship that may exist between this need and great opportunity for a polycentric Italy that we all know on a social level, on a cultural level, on an artistic level, on a landscape level, so a relationship with medium or big-sized cities. So, to conclude, I think that Beppe Sala said very rightly this morning that the risk/opportunity exists today. So the re-emergence of the concept of the big state. As Sala mentioned, the big state emerging. Certainly the flow of ordinary and extraordinary resources that will be arriving in this country and that will have to be used very effectively and very efficiently. I think that they might also be used through the tools of impact finance. So I'd like to conclude here. I don't want to take away any more time, because, and once again, I apologize for not being visible. You cannot see me, but I go back to what Mr. Olivetti said, and also what Kelly said about the challenge of measuring, the importance and the challenge of measuring the social, the environmental impact, a challenge that obviously I will be talking about in the steering committee. I will be bringing there. As Mr. Olivetti mentioned, it will be very interesting for us to talk about the leap, the paradigm leap that that implies moving from the ESG compliance to instead the impact investing paradigm. And I also would like to say that I think that this season, these times are times for innovation also in the legal tools. And the state has to be there. The central state, the territorial institutions, the local institutions all have to participate. So the social impact for Italy, the global steering group for impact investment, the objectives are to reinforce, to support the impact ecosystem worldwide, And in the meantime, we can start working with you too, with COIMA, in this new venture, in this new adventure. And I'd like to conclude by saying that it is very, very important to say that the world of pension funds, of also the social security funds, I mean, and this product is a proof of this, is entering, is fully acquiring the awareness of its role. Elsewhere, in other countries, the lever to create an ecosystem of this has been pension funds to create this ecosystem. So this common journey is very important. And as Manfredi said before, I would also like to repeat that if in a few years' time we will have 100 impact funds in Italy, this will only have meant that finally that generative, patient, fruitful, long-term finance and not extractive simply and speculative finance, I mean, the first will have prevailed over the second one. And this is the reason why about 10 years ago, I created the Human Foundation in Italy. I founded it, and with the same objective, the same impact objective. So thank you very much again.
Thank you. Thank you, Giovanna. Thank you for your comments and for underscoring the, the key role of this. Ercilia Vaudo Scarpetta has the floor, Spatial European Agency, Chief Diversity Officer. She's very much into the social. Thank you. Ercilia, the floor to you. Thanks. Unfortunately, we are not getting any sound. Okay. First of all, thank you very much. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Manfredi, for having me and for getting me in on this adventure started today. I'm very happy with coming nearly to the end of the debate. Until yesterday, I am into astrophysics, and I was getting out of my comfort zone. I was thinking, but now I realize that there is anyway a common element, the future that is here before it happens. And as Enrique just, indicated once, this is the feature of my business. So I do not feel alien or separate from this. In fact, I think that there's so many tips and suggestions that we should develop together. Let me start from this, though, the inclusion and social impact challenge. It's a very complex challenge. It challenges facts and perceptions. Facts relate to measurability, assessment, but equally important is perception. As Sala pointed out, feeling, perceiving the determination of a discontinuity, trusting a desire, a will of far-sighted change. And this is also based very much on a value which was not spelled out, but it's a common thread, a fil rouge, as they say, of the funds initiative. Respecting places, lands, soils, people. The other element is about understanding both visible but also invisible barriers into participation. Sure, it means infrastructures, but also social, cultural barriers, demographic stereotypes, technological and social stereotypes. And whenever, and let me put it this way, differently, spaces, places should be able to, take people in, but also move you closer to reducing differences and distances. It is from this viewpoint that I suggest that we should also capitalize very much on what happened during the healthcare emergency. Today we have a renewed wish and desire of physical closeness, but there are opportunities of inclusion that have been offered by the digital technology. What is interesting, though, is that many of the fund's objectives imply moving from 0 to 1, meaning being able to imagine, making it possible, and implement something that did not exist before, that doesn't exist now. And whenever you take this step, which is at the heart, at the core of innovation, what you create is new opportunities out there. And of course, opportunities also, I'm sure, over, testing out new skills or using your skills, but in a different way, which means being able to educate, train, an opportunity for training, but also to generate more jobs, more employment. So the overall picture of inclusive employment equals to providing equal opportunities to all. Social, territorial differences, gender or age differences, by contrast, only participate in enriching this diversity of talents, which are the very foundation of any real innovation and durable, sustainable innovation over time. Otherwise, they will remain simple, viewpoints of the happy few and will not provide the breadth that we are aiming at. Another thing I'd like to suggest is trying to give a different thought of how to interact with places. The experience of spaces is one where the 5 senses are not being used in a traditional way. In space, we are all, disabled in a certain sense, if I may use this word. Gravity, does not provide the same speed or strength of movement and motion. And this may seem a futuristic, far-sighted opportunity, but it's very close by. We have a know-how as an agency, but also many resources to tap from. Knowing that information today can be a written word, a narrating story or voice, symbols to be read through your hands. Well, images are also made of pixels. And these pixels may turn into sound, waves, tactile feelings, and expanding this prospect, also in terms of disabilities, the possibility of using genuinely these resources. I'm thinking of tourism as well, and museums, for instance. Well, this is an engine of innovation with major fallout for a population which undoubtedly is aging, but nonetheless has a great desire of smart inclusion, of participating in a very smart way. Places are then turning into proximity spaces, generational spaces. I'm thinking of children, young people, the elderly, in an active mode, so that those places with everybody's contribution can be turned into something good and nice with a certain meaning and providing meaning, not necessarily and only now, but really looking into the future. So going forward, I hope that this will be a bearing theme in our analysis, in future initiatives. And one of the reasons, by the way, I'm really happy with being on this board, on this committee, is that we don't simply have a marketing narrative there. There is a real closeness, attachment, certainly by Manfredi, to these values, but really seen and interpreted as a precondition, a must for the success of this initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. Now we can leave the floor to Valerio Camerano, who is also a independent member of the steering committee, professor of the University Lewis, and a great expert in the field of energy. Valerio, you spoke about great courage for this huge challenge. Thank you, Valerio. Yes, thank you very much. Thanks also on my part for having been involved in this wonderful adventure that has an epic nature to it in the classical sense. It's big enough and visionary also at the same time. So I will try to, I'm not going to be going on a journey through space as Celia has, but I'd like to talk about the circular smart city. Talking about cities, we've all touched upon the topic of big cities because I think that the challenge on big cities is huge for the future of the planet and therefore to some extent also for the objectives of the fund. Well, cities occupy 2% of the world's surface, but at the same time they absorb almost 3/4 of the resources, economic resources of the planet, and they have a responsibility of emissions that ranks between 80-90% of global emissions. So the city is crucial for the success of any sustainability policies. It's a crossroads which is really crucial for those who really want to develop concrete projects addressed towards sustainability. But cities are themselves, now imbued with change, with important trends of change, which I think are relevant. First of all, urbanization. We know that, as Manfredi was rightly saying this morning, urbanization is not by definition always positive, but not negative either. You have billions of people who have the opportunity of drinking, potable water, drinkable water, new educational systems, new jobs, maybe access to a health system. But urbanization, 70% of the world population in 2050 will be living in big cities. The Americas are already extremely urbanized, and this is a phenomenon that will be very strong for Asia. And Africa and Italy will be playing a part too. According to some estimates, 50 million, so it will be about 7 million more Italians than those living today in the big cities by 2050. So there will be problems, there will be issues, there will be important questions to answer so as to manage these processes. Second point is pollution produced by cities. Obviously, cities produce energy, mobility. Kelly was saying about talking about heating and cooling. About 1/3 of the primary energy is absorbed by cooling and heating systems. So overall, today, the effects of global pollution, cities do play a crucial role. Just think about the famous island of plastic in the Pacific, 5 times bigger than Italy, and obviously due caused and created by the non-handled, non-managed consumption of plastic. And then all of the aspects connected to seas, rivers, in general, the sustainability of the city have an impact for more than 5% of world pollutants. And this is bound to increase significantly over the next few years. And then the third aspect, which is that of climate change. We all know that this is very much connected to the presence in the atmosphere of greenhouse gases. This is a phenomenon that's growing. 19 of the 20 hottest year go from 2001 onwards. So it's a very significant phenomenon. But why am I talking about this in this context? Because this maybe is less well known. Of the 1,200 cities exceeding 500,000 inhabitants worldwide, more than 60% live in the most important hot, let's say, areas for climate change. So these cities will have to face potential environmental catastrophes. So think about the rise in the sea levels, the heat waves. Even a city like Milan has energy consumption that grows by 3% for reasons which are only connected to, for instance, air conditioning. So the cities will have to face huge problems as far as the inhabitability, the presence and the management of cities, and also the impact that this will have in the future. And then the fourth point concerns the use and the scarcity of resources. Here too, cities use a lot of resources. I'm thinking especially about energy resources. We were talking about buildings, but also electrical mobility. And cities for a long time have been a paradigm of classic energy consumption, but they absorb a lot of energy that were fueled thanks to huge energy producers, in particular obviously the plants, and there's now a fragmentation of in the production of energy, but also in the consumption of energy. So we're seeing like a democratization, let's call it this way, of the energy system with the creation of what we call the energy community. So those subjects that will be actively participating in the consumption of energy, but also in the exchange of energy. And obviously housing will be crucial in terms of its contribution to consumption and production of energy. Other two variables, we have water scarcity. Consumption has more than doubled over the past years, have grown up by 70% approximately, and this is a variable which is very, very scarce. Obviously, a lot of cubic a lot of quantities of water are consumed, and this poses enormous problems, especially if they are connected to the rest of the themes. For instance, the thawing of the glaciers. And then the soil, I think Manfredi was mentioning this as one of the issues for the future. So we will have to see what the marginal consumption of the soil will be. They grow more than the growth of the population. And soil is a very scarce resource, in particular if connected to the evolution in the request and the demand for food. But food calls for agriculture, and agriculture is one of the main sources of pollution on a world level. So soil, food, and agriculture will be key aspects that will be concerning for the future, I mean. So these four elements do transform city, pose problems, but also create enormous opportunities. There are many solutions. The most intuitive solution is to have a sustainable, urban development model. And this is the very heart of everything, the heart of the commitment of the ESG City Fund that's all launched today. So I think that this adventure will be really rich in value and in huge opportunities. There is a sustainable urban model, and I'm very happy to be able to participate to it together with all of you to build together ideas, processes, and solutions that may help in this sustainability process. Now, it's evident that it will be impossible to have a smart planet without having smart cities. So the challenge ahead of us is really very important and crucial. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Valerio. So we're now closing this part. Giuseppe La Rosa will also contribute. And so what do we do? Giovanni Maggi has the floor now. Before the conclusions, we are running a bit late. Sorry, Giovanni, but I'm sure that you'll be very effective and very concise. Manfredi, you always provide us with the opportunities to learn. Let me share 4 points. COIMA ESG, which is a national company of top quality, top level. And this is the project that has been developing over the years in Milan. They have a top ambition, top quality, with investors, both institutional, international, and national investors. So this is evidence that whenever there is a quality project, even investors from other countries that are ahead of us and leading us decided to support our ideas in our country. And this is not to be underestimated. It's not of poor relevance because this is a country that has two needs. One, to channel domestic investors' resources, especially in Italy, and also to focus international resources from other countries. COIMA has a project capability for the projects that have been doing and have improved Milan for the better. And I really like very much the fact that 400 million euros have been collected by institutional investors of outstanding quality. And the reason I'm saying this is not because my friend Nunzio Walter, Giuseppe Santoro, and Alberto Olivetti are here, but because the Cassa Previdenziale, the social security institutions investing into this project are a benchmark for the entire social security universe. The Enasarco Foundation, well, I am a vice president. With that, it'll be a great pleasure to push knowing the level of governance, which is pretty complex, pushing the possibility of having us as an important part of this project. The second issue, which is very important, is the need to create a system, to act as a system. This is a very challenging time. COVID-19 has been really underscoring the weaknesses of our country. Unless we really join our forces as a network, as a system, it'll be quite hard, believe me, to pull out from that 2-year phase, as our Mayor Sala mentioned, which will really hit hard, very hard our country. Once the possibility of not firing diminishes, or when the cassa integrazione, the redundancy payment will finish, what will happen? I can't think of the number of people fired or dismissed in our country. And there's one example that we, as a world of pension funds, has been developing. It's about 30 funds with 54 billion of assets, 1,200,000 members. We have difficulties. Undoubtedly, if the economy has a crisis, companies also experience a crisis. And as a result, and by default, the employees, we are optimistic because the Italian productive system has been going through even harder moments. And the companies that survived came out even stronger. So I believe that we will pull out of this in other sectors, tertiary sectors like tourism or others. It's going to be much harder. We brought together our forces as a system with a public-private collaboration or partnership. Our partner was CDP, and it is known 70% being controlled by MEF and 30% is controlled by the world of foundations, bank foundations, that anyway have a bank origin. So this is a project, a PPP project, where various private funds are putting together their resources in 3 funds of funds. That is the goal: a private equity, a private debt fund of funds, and an infrastructure fund of funds. 3 of them, which could be very interested in this project. We have not decided yet whether it'll be the Italian Fondo di Investimento Italiano, SGR, CDP, or MEF to take on this project, or CDP infrastructure. We don't know, but CDP will, clear this quite soon. The goal is collecting €1 billion in a domestic project. So the resources of these funds and the pre-existing ones that may decide to participate, because meetings have been taking place with the boards of other pre-existing funds, both banks and management. So the goal is to come up with €1 billion with a CDP, which will invest 50% of this. So it might be 3 funds of funds, which may invest hefty resources, having also a greater impact on the economy. The time is quite short. The private equity first phase has started already, and so the training of the pre-existing ones is already up and running, and in July the rest will take place. Infrastructure in September. This is a small effort to act as a system involving a very complex world. Pre-existing funds have a bilateral nature. You have the corporate element and the union element. So, of course, you have to find a trade-off agreement to develop and carry out the project, which calls for a lot of patience, a lot of time, and a good capability and capacity of interrelating with everybody else. So this is a project which will forge ahead, and as I see it, we'll also get other projects in turn to get started. The country badly needs to have institutional resources to support the SMEs, which unfortunately are coming up against major obstacles. Our state has a huge debt, so the resources that can be given by the state are certainly smaller than can be done by Switzerland, Germany, or the Netherlands, for instance, to their businesses. The other thing that really pleased me a lot is the ESG PRI, social impact compliance. For 2 years, we've all understood that this is no fad. It's a major structural change. In fact, in a changing world, So strong focus on the environment, strong focus on governance, and on social impact of certain investments. But most of all, the idea of employment, the labor market, more than ever, it is important whenever you invest to focus on the employment side of the story. The number of jobs that are likely to be created, because when job is strongly collapsing, if new ones are created, you can pull up to this tunnel. I love this project. As a result, this is a project that in the first instance really touches on a European benchmark, Milan being a city that is regarded by Europe as a benchmark to its capacity in the past 20 years. Also with various mayors who have not destroyed what the previous ones have done, but have improved them. The city has always been managed well, has a great outstanding potential, and has to pull out from this very challenging and disruptive time, which will last probably 6 months, a year and a half. But to do that and to survive, we need this quality projects. Across all major crises of greatest difficulty, there is also a moment of renaissance from the ashes up to new constructions. So my hope is that this will take place over the next 2-3 years, and I'm sure that knowing you personally and knowing the top quality of what you are doing in the city, I feel much more optimistic than other cases. So Manfredi, thank you very much, really wholeheartedly. I don't have any doubt this will be a great success. In addition to real estate, you're also touching on infrastructures. In my negotiating world, infrastructures stand as the top priority. The union side and negotiating side want to support the country and invest in infrastructures, which means airports, ports, hospitals, schools, favoring, promoting movements. There's a new Musk project, Elon Musk project, with a new office in Italy, and a potential connection between Bologna and Milan, Turin could be possible in 14 minutes, I read. So 7 minutes from Bologna, from Milan, another 7 plus 7, which would totally change, the way we understand mobility. You could live in the country, in the countryside, in Bologna, in a wonderful house, and in 14 minutes, you are in Turin. So there's many challenges ahead of us. You have to have clear ideas, the resources, the men who strongly believe in this, because the human capital in this stage will matter even more than in the past. But I truly believe, as a realistic person, that things can be done, and well. Thank you very much.
Grazie Giovanni.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Giovanni. Now I'm going to obviously run out of time, so I'd like to thank all of the people who have come here. Obviously, I thank to all those who have participated, all those who were connected, and have a good lunch. This is my conclusion. Thank you very much.